The meat of the self-development project, unfortunately we don't have time to go into in detail here, but broadly speaking, the real bulk of the work that we're doing when it comes to our self-development are the self-development practices. So for the mind, we have gratitude and devotion. For the intellect, we have philosophical inquiry. And for the body, we have selfless action. So I'm just going to touch on these briefly. Gratitude is the effacement of ego. The ego basically functions in a number of different ways. It takes things for granted, so we often talk about a kid who's born into wealth doesn't know that he is born into wealth. To him, it's just normal. He's complacent. His parents are fully aware of the wealth because they grew up poor. They worked their butts off and made some money, but when that boy's born into that first generation of wealth, complacent, takes it for granted, doesn't even know how good he's got it. Another way that the ego functions is through entitlement. Give me, I want more, I deserve it. The moment we implement a gratitude practice in life, we are getting rid of both of these. So as a practice, it simply means asking the question, what are the good things that I have in my life that I would miss if they went away? When we do that, we are effacing this aspect of the ego. What's important to remember is that the frequency of this practice is different for everybody. It depends upon your own independent temperament. Now, for some people, this might be a great thing to do twice a day. For some people, it might be once a week. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Again, we have to schedule it according to what our particular needs are. But the point is that what happens when we do this is that we temporarily suspend that egocentric perspective and we naturally grow into it. But of course, gratitude is still ego-centered from the perspective of, well, it's still all about me. And so gratitude must flower into a less egocentric feeling of devotion. It's what you might call a universal feeling. There's different ways that we can do it. One of the ways is to attune to the beauty of nature. When you look at the natural world functioning, how does it function? What causes it to function the way that it does? The waves roll in indefatigably, over and over and over. Tree produces a seed, produces a tree, produces a seed, over and over and over. Blade of grass gets pushed out of the ground, planets revolve around each other. Chemical changes are happening when you eat a piece of food. Amazing, life is functioning in this way. How does it function in this way? What's the underlying cause of all of this incredible functioning of nature that we can observe? Some intelligence, higher force. All ways of saying, I don't know. There's some higher force that I can't comprehend, some higher intelligence which is beyond mine. But I know it's happening because I cut myself and immediately forces come together to help me heal. Ascharya, wonderment. So just observing the natural world can be an amazing way of filling ourselves with this sense of wonder, this universal adoration for the phenomenon of nature. Music can have a similar effect when the theme is divine. So you listen to, say, Carnatic music or some Hindustani classical, or perhaps you like Western classical. Beautiful themes which are very grandiose and talking about something beyond the mere day-to-day grind. A religious affiliation. Maybe you have a relationship with a prophet or a messiah or a saint or a sage or a god or whatever it happens to be. That can also help to elicit feelings of devotion. And finally, etc. Etc. means whatever works. There's a range of different ways that we can start to elicit this universal adoration. We've got to find whatever is working for us. From the intellectual side, it's philosophical inquiry. Simply asking the question, what is true? And we can ask it at the physical domain. Is it raining or is it sunny? How much does that bottle weigh? 400 grams. Okay. It's a truth. It's a fact. But also, what is true for me emotionally? What is true morally? What is true spiritually? I can believe that it's raining and be wrong about it. I can believe that the right way to conduct myself in business is that greed is good and screw the other person down for as much as you can. I can believe that that's a way to function and be wrong about it. I can believe that the way to gain satisfaction is to exercise power and control over others and be wrong about it. I can believe that I am this limited body, mind, and intellect and be wrong about it. So philosophical inquiry is simply recognizing maybe I'm wrong. Let me discover the truth. As a practice, it means daily questioning early in the morning of a philosophical text. Doesn't matter what the book is. You pick anything, as long as it is a philosophical exposition of human life. So it can be poetry, it can be a religious text, it can be a philosophical text, it can be Shakespeare, it can be anything. The point is that we are using that text as a way of trying to understand the truth about human life. The truth is always universal. The truth is not ego-centered. So the more I identify with the truth, the less I identify with ego-centered perspectives. And the other aspect is introspection, which we've discussed at other times. At the end of the day, simply recollect everything that has happened throughout the day from start to finish, and then stop. No questioning, no analysis, no commentary, no that was good, that was bad, no digressing, just remembering. 5 or 6 minutes, finished. End of the day, that's the other thing. So that's for the intellectual side of the personality. For the physical side of the personality, selfless action. Determine what your roles and your goals and your ideals are. So, I enter into an environment and I am the son-in-law. That's my role. What are my obligations as the son-in-law? Okay, I've got to figure that out. Then later on in the day I go and I'm the son. I'm in a different house now. What are the obligations of a son? Very different. Then I go somewhere else and I am the boss. All my workers are there. Different set of obligations. Then I go somewhere else and I am with my bosses. Now I'm the subordinate. Different set of obligations. Where am I? Who am I in this environment? What are my goals? And therefore, what are my obligations? So anytime we use this word obligation, the implication is irrespective of what my personal demands are. I'm the son-in-law, and Granddad says to me, "You got a good job yet?" And my desire is to say, "Leave me alone. I do what I want. I don't have to answer to you." That's what I want to do. But I know that as a son-in-law, my obligation is to be a little more polite. I go home, and my grandfather says, "Got a good job yet?" "Yeah, you old man, sit down and have another drink." There I can be a bit more rude. Why? Different roles, different obligations. So I figure out what my obligations are. The implication is aside from or independent of what my immediate demands are. Then I simply execute those obligations without expecting the result. So from a practical perspective, that's what we mean by saying work for the ideal. What is the ideal that I'm trying to achieve here in my workplace, here in my marriage, here with my physical health, here in my friends, my community, etc. When I surrender to that ideal, What it means is I'm surrendering to the less selfish mode of functioning. As I think, so I become. The more I function in a way towards my ideals without expecting a result, the more I grow into that attitude of selflessness, egolessness. So these three practices, gratitude and devotion, philosophical inquiry, and selfless action, need to be integrated into our existing activities. It's not that we say, okay, these are my work activities, my family activities, my social life, and these are my self-development activities. No, no, no. What we say is, these are my current activities. How can I weave my self-development practices into these activities? That's what we're looking to do, so that we integrate these practices all through life. As I think, so I become. So while I'm at the in-laws' place, I'm practicing self-development. When I'm at the gym, I'm practicing self-development. When I'm teaching a class, I'm practicing self-development. When I'm absorbing a class, I'm practicing it. When I'm with my friends, when I'm on the freeway, I'm practicing self-development. What happens if you practice something consistently over and over and over and over and over again? It becomes a habit. You become a virtuoso. If you were to quit your job and practice for 8 hours a day on the violin, within a year, you would be an amazing violin player. You wouldn't have any money because you quit your job, but still. If you practiced self-development 8 hours every day for the rest of your life, what would you be like after 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? What do you look like? Your degree of autonomy, self-sufficient well-being, your degree of empathy, your connectedness with the world around you, it's reached peaks that most people can't even visualize, let alone experience. The 4-year-old can't visualize that bittersweet joy of the son coming home. She has to grow up before she can experience it. We have to grow up before we can experience these heights of these peaks of human experience. That's what self-development is all about.